Hello and welcome to Candle Yellow, and we are doing a teacher-led instruction for how do you teach your letter J, which is goal setting. Remember, goal setting is based on SMART goal, S-M-A-R-T. So today we are looking at A, which stands for achievable. If you want to know a bit about it, S for specific, M for measurable, A I just mentioned achievable, R for result oriented, and T for time bound. So as a teacher, write the SMART word and then tell them what it means. The whole idea is your goal needs to be smart. If they aren't smart enough, you can think of becoming a great athlete, and it is a very generic, no time bound goal. Achievable means you set a specific time limit and the growth limit. Here is an example on J1. You see, Ankit is a young boy. As he grew up, now he's 40 years old, he's starting making some resolutions for the new year. Now think of them growing up to become 40. Would you think of all your goals now being the same one as 40? Perhaps your goals now are collect the stickers, or make some comic books, or perhaps go just play cricket or online video games. Ankit has different goals. So they have to do two things. Even before I'm playing the J1 activity, they have to interview someone who's 40 or around 40 and ask what are their 5 goals. Here is a great sub activity which I'm making them interpersonal learners. They're going out, talking to people, interviewing. It could be their father, uncle. I would prefer someone outside the family itself. Go meet someone else. It could be a teacher itself. But they can call someone, that's fine. So they can call a father's friend, which is even more exciting. So that's your side activity. Coming back to J1, Ankit's goal of spending time with family. Oh, at 40 you really want that. Become take a new course on MBA. What is MBA? It's a management program. Masters of Business Administration. Ask your students, you're learning new. Go on a trekking trip to Leh Ladakh. Join a karate class or a gym perhaps. Exercise, read. What would you like to read? And spend less time on the mobile phone. Now, what you do in J2 is, as you discuss the goals, you have a lot of time with the students. They find out what is good. Is any of them their goal also? Now, on the right hand side and the left hand side, there are 2 columns given. One is called achievable goals, unachievable goals. So they have to find out what goals have Ankit added which are achievable. Perhaps according to them, going to Leh Ladakh is unachievable. Ask them why not. All could be achievable. It's absolutely their perspectives. As you're doing it, you're also learning what the students are thinking about goals. But the good part of the activity and more interesting would be where you are actually pushing them and asking them to write down 2 goals which they think are achievable and should be achieved by age 40. It could be a business related goal, a family related goal, a health related goal. And as they're doing it, remember the interviews where after the exercise when you do it, it'll really help them. 2 unachievable goal, perhaps Ankit cannot win a Wimbledon. We'll talk about that in the 3rd activity. Or Ankit wants to become an author, and that's a great achievable goal. So by the time you come and talk to your students, you will have lots of ideas. Write down. Perhaps as a teacher, I'm encouraging you, write down your own 10 goals, whatever age you are in. But what would you like to do? If you're already 40, make it 50, plus 5, minus 5. Wherever you stand, ask your children and yourself, what goals do you have? One last side activity is on New Year resolution. Remember, on J1 we use the word. A very interesting study says most of the people, which is 90% of people, make exercise or health related goals on New Year. And within 25 days, which is less than a month, they cannot follow up on their goals. Go ahead and ask them why. And New Year is a great time to see people make resolutions and goals. If they were to make their own 2 New Year resolutions and keep them for the whole year, what would that be? Very interesting concept on goal setting. After the goal setting of Ankit's achievable, unachievable 40, we come to somebody at 40 who have grown great. On J3 till J5, I'm going to talk about one of everyone's favorite hero in the news all the time, Elon Musk. The world of Elon Musk is a world of dreams, of passions, of achievable, of entrepreneurship. And you need to take up a big picture of Elon Musk, read about him, how was he beginning, what did Elon Musk do, how did he start, and what he is doing currently. I will give you a basic idea of who Elon Musk is. Elon Musk is the CEO and the founder of a very progressive company called Tesla. Now you know Tesla is from Nikola Tesla, the person who gave us the alternating current. And his story itself is very interesting. He took the name from Tesla and he says, I'm going to make electric cars. Now if you go back to the first of the pages where I speak about sustainable goals. So where there is a page called index, in sustainable goals we have a goal called number 11, sustainable cities and community, number 12, responsible consumption, and number 13, climate action. Number 7 is called affordable and clean energy. All of these 4 goals can be used here, saying Elon Musk is making a better world. A world where pollution, fossil fuels, oil, the air, the smoke is reduced by electric cars. And that's his goal. Now read the data and J3 and start making your prediction. What is the prediction I'm asking you to do is electric vehicles will grow from 3 million to 125 million by 2030. Coincidentally, 2030 is the time where these 17 global goals have to be achieved. Now, so the world's fleet of electric vehicle will grow to 54%. What do you think? Is it achievable by 2030, or we can do it earlier, or it will be pushed later? It is a group discussion. I want you to talk on the goals. I want you to have a class plan. What are the current electric cars in your city? Can they go to data? Can they find out? J4 is all about data, and as I believe these are students, I expect them to rise to the occasion. There are a lot of questions mentioned here. Where do you think the popularity of the electric car will be? Can we use public transport like a metro train, a bullet train? What about drones? Like Jeff Bezos, another of the great entrepreneur, wants to use drones for all delivery. So we'll have no bikes and scooters maybe. What do you do with the old cars? In Mumbai, there is an entire campaign that goes on which says that the cars which are lying vacant, thrashed, they are spoiling the environment, they can be thrown away. A company in Gurgaon is actually buying these cars and converting them into scrap. A lot of case study can be done. What we have done is we've shown a bar graph, and this would be a difficult activity if you have not done your studies well. But in the bar graph, we're saying, look at the countries that need to scale up on electric car usage. So we're saying that top selling light duty plug-in electric vehicle in the global market. China is leading, and Elon Musk is not selling in China. So who is? Go search. Europe as a whole continent is below China. United States as a country is right there, number 3. California as a state is actually bigger than perhaps Norway, Japan, France, UK, Germany, Netherlands, and a host of countries including India. What is California doing right? Why are there so many electric cars there? Go ahead, do a research. Remember sometime back we did a map of United States. Find out where California is, what's the weather of California, how conducive it is, and this is a great input on a world of cars and automobiles. On the world of automobiles, before we go to J5, find out what Germany can do. Germany has some of the best cars in the world, isn't it? Find out the 5 cars that Germans make. How does it help if we can convert them into electric cars? More on Elon Musk on J5. Elon Musk owns 3 more companies. Wow! First one besides Tesla is called SpaceX. What does SpaceX do? Well, he has this amazing mission to be one of the first manned mission to Mars, into space. And Jeff Bezos has the same mission. Richard Branson of the Virgin Atlantic has the same mission. Talk about it. His second company is even more interesting, called the Boring Company. By any means, it is not boring. In this boring, we mean boring as in digging. He is creating what is called hyperloop tunnels. These tunnels will, it's like Star Trek. From one place to another, you will go and zoom in as fast as you can think. What is Boring Company doing? Where is he making those hyperloops? How will the world transportation really change? And then there is a solar city, an entire creation, a new city only using solar, renewable source of energy. Now, one last activity on Elon Musk, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to do with this entire achievable goal, is adding achievable. Do you think Elon Musk can achieve these goals with all the ambitious project? What are the top 3 things he will need? Will he need money? Will he need more people, which is called HR? Will he need great world to adopt and accept it? Go ahead, find out all that you can. And then one is, because of these 3 companies, SpaceX, Tesla and Solar City, you can add Hyperloop, a boring company as part of solar. How should he divide his time from Sunday to next Saturday? Should he have an off day? What do you think about Elon Musk? Great case study, wonderful hero to talk about, and I'll be excited to know what you have done with your students on this great entrepreneur of our generation. It's not over yet, isn't it? On the goal setting achievable part, we are going to J6 and we are talking about this huge legend of a game, Pete Sampras. Yesterday I just watched an epic game on Wimbledon final between Djokovic and Roger Federer. The Serbian defeated the Swiss player, but it was an epic 2-hour plus amazing thriller of a Wimbledon final. The same thing you can talk about in a generation before. Pete Sampras was what these heroes are today. Ask them about their tennis. Ask them what are the 4 Grand Slams in the world. The US Open, the Australian Open, the French Open and the Wimbledon in United Kingdom. Tell them how many tennis players they can think of. My generations have Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras. Before that were Boris Becker, Ivan Lendl. Much before was John McEnroe. In the women there was Steffi Graf, Monica Seles. In current generation we have the Venus Williams and Serena Williams, Maria Sharapova, some new female athletes coming in. From India it's Sania Mirza, and then the 3 legends we love, Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal and Djokovic. So Novak Djokovic. So what do they know about tennis? Talk to them. Look at Pete Sampras' record. The best part about Pete Sampras is he's one of the nicest guys you can meet. An American, he's polite, he's humble, you won't find any controversy associated with it, and for 25 years he was leading number 1 ranked player in the world. Ask them. So there's so much you do about tennis. I would be amazed if you can borrow a few tennis balls, borrow a tennis racket, show them how to play, do some kind of an activity in your class on tennis itself. As you go to J7, we come to what I'm talking about, the great heroes of today's tennis. Now, Roger Federer has to surpass his idol Sampras. What has he done? So look at the titles each of them have won and find out where they are currently. This is now perhaps, Djokovic has moved far ahead to 16, Nadal to 18. Where is Federer? Where are they looking at in tennis? You can take it to a new sport they have not talked about. Perhaps a Formula 1, Lewis Hamilton, from back to Michael Schumacher. So you can take up a sport that is not popular in your area and do an entire achievable goal. The main crux of this activity is in J7, end of it. What is the routine of Roger Federer that makes him so strong? Is his coaching class. So find out how important coaches are. I call myself a mindset coach. What do you think a coach, a mental conditioning coach can do? What the school can provide? So Roger Federer's school, what was it like? And practice you must. The rule is 10,000 hours to be successful in anything in life. It could be music, it could be sports, it could be studies, it could be chess, it could be engineering. You have to spend 10,000 hours from Michael Gladwell. The book is called Gladwell's Outliers, which says 10,000 hours if you put, you'll become great. Ask them how many hours have they put to whatever they love. Ask your students what are their strengths, what do they want to achieve. Then a healthy diet. Yes, junk food is good, McDonald's looks nice, but too much of McDonald's you cannot achieve. Even if it is not a sport, you need healthy food. What do you mean by healthy food? Ask them. Then good court. So like Sampras, prefers the hard court. Nadal prefers the clay court of France. It could also be your environment. Where are you working? What kind of schools? Do the schools have facilities? What libraries do you go to? What membership you've got? How much time you spend online? I don't see Sampras playing PUBG all the time. stamina, mental and physical. Then studying the opponent's weakness. It's not enough to know your strength. It's also important to know your opponent's strength. Where do they fail? So, and then Sampras had along with Sampras, Federer, they have a great ace. Ace is a tennis word where you hit the ball so hard that no one can get it. What are your aces in life? What are your goals in life? And how are you going to achieve it? We'll love to hear them. And this is a great activity for teachers to involve the entire class on. All the best and achieve your goals. Hello and welcome to Candle Yellow. And today we are doing a theme, health and society, and your topic is hygiene. This is the letter K that we're talking about, and a very interesting take on what hygiene means to all of us. So in this perspective, we take a first of the three activities, K1 and K2. And we've given you a map of United States, and in that we suggest to look at the map and the color coding of the map. It's a very different kind of a color coding we've given you, that the students will have to look at the UV rays. What's a UV ray? It's the harmful ultraviolet rays. These are the rays that, because of the ozone layer which has a hole in it, there's a complete, we are exposed to the UV rays which are leading to skin cancer, allergies and different health hazards. Now, there is a legend given in it. So first of all, I would like to take a call on what are UV rays, what's an ozone layer, do a little research and speak to the students on these perspectives. Now, the legend says if it's a black, it's highly toxic. That means the complete radiation is exposing the area. What could be the reason for that? Maybe these countries, and I'm sure earlier you read about the states of United States. What kind of factories are there? What kind of people live there? Is it a desert? Where is Texas? Gray, brown, yellow has a relatively different scale. So what you need to do with your students, and it's a very, very interactive activity, based on the above color codes, what approximate percentage of land is toxic? So if United States was 100, what would the percentage of the black areas be? So black would be what? 20%, 30%, 50%. Allow them. And I would love to know the analogy, how a student decodes it. So they might count the state, they might break it down, they might do the best would be to do a rough estimate of the number. It's a great way of learning. Number two, the approximate percentage of area which is non-toxic. So non-toxic would be a brown and yellow zone. So what are the brown and the yellow zone? Is that 50%? Why not? Then there is a blue region not mentioned in the legend. What are the states representing the blue region and why are they so non-toxic? Amazingly, you can go back and find out where do they exist in the United States map and what you make out of it. Is it because they're islands? Is it because they're deep in the sea? Is it because they're far away from some of the tropical lines? Where does the equator pass through? It will be a very, very interesting geography lesson. And the last question again is, why is the middle area most toxic? So you will have to go bring up the big map, look at where the map falls in, what countries or what states and what industries falls there. In K2, you take it to a next level where we given you a world map with a hazardous symbol here. The strange thing about it is this is given in a language which you may not understand, the students will not understand. Yet they have to use the analysis school and the tools they've got and the skill they based on analysis, what kind of conclusion have they come up with. I would love the students to, first of all, the easy one is, what does the scale represent? If you look at Gehring and Hodge, go online, Google it. It doesn't mean cool, vegetation, green, and hot means desert. And of course, you can always make out one is the easy one, 5 and 6 are the extreme one. But what do they mean? Do they mean ice? Do they mean vegetation? Do they mean desert? Do they mean population? Do they mean climate? Do they mean natural resources? Do they mean population? Do they mean poverty? All the words I'm suggesting, write them down and tell them, if I were to ask class to divide themselves into small groups and give them two indicators, how would they divide? If it was population, the green is easier. But if it was heat, the red is more difficult. What if red is easier and the green is heat? What could that be? Find it out. It could be animals, it could be resources. It's an interesting take on them decoding what a cartographer and a researcher would do. So that's your activity K1 and K2. What can you do on a sub activity with a student? I believe this is itself enough, but you can take up any more printout of your country, like I look at India, and you can see some kind of class difference. So you can say in India, where the industries, which regions are the most literate, or which political party which is easier one during elections, so you can have green and orange and blue. So you can use some of the codes just to understand the color coding and how color coding makes you understand a perspective. You can do that with a regional area of your own city and say, okay, think of your city as a big circle, and now color, give them three colors, so it could be black, yellow and green, and color your city according to natural resources, traffic for that example, or people or schools, and it will be very interesting for them to make their own maps. We move further to K3 and K4. It's on hygiene, and we've given an example of two characters, Humpty and Simmy. Now both of them have a very persisting bad habit. The Humpty has a habit of biting her nails, or rather his nails. So Humpty Dumpty, remember, and Simmy picks her nose in public. Yuck! We call it the gold digging. Now, what you're doing is, without embarrassing a student, without humiliating them, you're telling they might have this habit. Usually, when you say that in a class, some students will come up and say, hey, she does it or he does it. Always ignore and say, no, we are discussing about Humpty and Simmy. I do not want to discuss about your classmate. But the others will get a message of how do we ignore and how do we improve. So we are asking them what advice you'll give to Humpty and Simmy. And if you're smart enough and you can make groups accordingly, the one who bites a nail or picks his nose can always be part of the group and they give advices otherwise. Now you see, nail biting and picking a nose, especially let's go to nail biting. It's also a anxiety indicator, it's also a fear indicator, it's also a sign of depression. While picking a nose is of course a sign of bad hygiene and absent-mindedness. So when you do that, you're also creating a profile of a student. This is a great group activity, allow students to discuss, allow students to come up with their own answers, and then on K4 they actually write down four advices. You can of course elongate it and write more to it for Humpty and for Simmy, and this is one of the best ways to deal with such kind of situation in your classes and create a great hygiene policy. Right, let's look at some of the questions and then I'll add up more if required. Question 1, why do people bite their nails? Ask them, allow them, and in group they can either present it or give you an answer randomly. What do you mean by nail biting finish? Now that's a very different term where people, a nail biting cricket match or a football match, what you actually mean by it is a very tense, over the edge seat cliffhanger. It could be a movie they're watching. When someone picks the nose, they often call, are you digging for gold? I just mentioned in the beginning, why is it that? So what we're trying to make them understand is there's nothing worthy to find. While it's ugly, bad and yucky, it also would not lead to any conclusion. So it's Indiana Jones searching for a lost treasure which is not there. Which is more gross habit, biting nails or picking nose? Well, of course, you have your own choice. I have my own reason. Let the students do. Maybe you can do a small debate around it. So if one says a group, yes, this is good, this is good, this is bad, and then you reverse it also for the students' understanding. Are there any other habit that is gross? Think of farting or burping. Are they common? Well, farting may not be, but still people are bullied for farting, so you can use that as a reference. Somebody might fart out of an extension of a bad stomach. Do not take it and do not make a silly joke out of it. People still might. But what about burping? Adults do it, people do it, senior people do it. So that would be a very sad habit. You can also make a list of other some unhygienic habits or very common habits that are peculiar to people. For example, people always comb their hair. Is it a good habit in public or not? So they carry a small comb. Perhaps not a bad. People do not wash their hand after defecating or urinating. Is that, of course, a hygienic habit or unhygienic habit? Let them discuss that. People wear dirty socks, and if you remove the shoes, the socks smell. If you remove the socks, feet smell. That's a really lousy habit. On a side note, one of the Indian spin bowlers, Harbhajan Singh, was asked to remove his socks and throw them in when he was touring New Zealand because they were really stinking. Well, that's really embarrassing for a nation, but definitely for the gentleman who was questioned. So you can pick up some more topics and you can discuss these in the school and the classes. For example, why do you not share toothbrushes? people will definitely not think of that, but people are comfortable wearing combs or sharing combs, but not toothbrushes. Why? What is personal hygiene to mean? How often do you change your undergarments? Well, this is a sensitive topic, but if at a certain level you're talking about candle yellow, it is really important to talk about certain deeper levels. You can go on to talk about puberty, menstruation, both for boys and girls in a very sensitive matter, because sometimes this becomes a laughing stock and people do not address such an interesting and important aspect to people's life. You can check out Menstruopedia, a comic book on menstruation, to give you and guide you with some answers. And at a different level, you can talk about the birds and the bees, something that the students have to be relevant and perhaps in a better setting. Good. So we've got lots and lots of side tangent for our previous activities. Let's go to the last one, and this is a longer one, 3 pages, K5 to K7. We are taking a case of hygiene and no safe water. So you see, there are a lot of NGOs, which is non-governmental organization, working on providing clean, safe water. So to do the water awareness, they are creating ads. So we are giving an example of some of the ads which are very, very nice. Water is vital because the first ad, and you do that with the student, and out of the three, we have got three different activities for you to do on K5. One is they decode what the ad means. So the man with the water in is you are almost 80% filled with water. That's one. So is watermelon, right? Number two, what is the water scarcity in Africa? It goes down. So that's the ad meaning. And number three, the water crisis in the world. Look at the world which is completely shady, deserted part where there is no water now. So that's your first activity. Ask students what these posters mean. Number two activity is they'll have to now recreate any one of the poster. So make the class into three groups, give them chart papers, crayons. They can take Africa, they can take the world, look at the water droplet, it's so symbolic, or a man or a person, human being rather, and they have to recreate. That's all. Water is vital, water is scarce, end the crisis. Number three, they have to come up with their own water poster. Now this is something very, very interesting. While we will go on to the next pages and we have something similar, but even before you go there, they need to create a water poster with something else. It could be on water conservation. So it could be, do not give them leverages, let them discuss that with you. So it could be don't let the taps running, or maybe if you're doing ablution or in some places, ritualistic water usage, it has to use sprinklers, something that helps in water conservation. That's the key here. It could be rainwater harvesting. It could be, not using water in extreme areas with even regards to festival, or drinking water enough and not wasting it, or not using plastic bottles, boycotting it and instead using copper bottles or things like that is an example we give them. On K6, it's one of my favorite charity organization called Charity Water. Ask students to do a little research on what charity water means and what does this ad mean. This is one of the most significant ad and something so beautifully portrayed. It says that 4,100 children die each day from water related disease. Hell, look at the picture and it has many, many indicators. It is saying that this bottle of milk that a child drinks or water that drinks, imagine the quality of water. Look at the dirty water. What you need to do is now I want you to make 5 arrows to this and tell me what are the 5 things that can be in a part of the water. Germs, bacteria, fungi, dirt, anything that feces, yes, things that are not even drinkable are what is being drunk by children across. On the other side, there are a lot of white pages here. I would like you to do 5 more containers which could be contaminated. Especially think of Africa and where do they get the waters with? What is water useful for? So you're bathing the water, you're using the water for of course cooking, you're using the water for disinfecting. Imagine if there's a wound and you're using water which is actually filled with bacteria and fungi and germs, it will only inflate the wound. So they write something down. On K7, we take it one step further and now they have to make a clean water ad right now. And this is not a group activity, it's an individual activity. I would like students to sit down, think and make an ad on clean water, like how prominent this particular ad is with water and dirty water in a milk bottle, how strong it is. Let them stick picture, they can stick, it is something they can even do it at the leisure. You can give them a lot of crayons, lot of magazines if you can. Usually I have a small secret to share. I collect a lot of discarded magazine. It could be the magazine you get at the airport, the magazine you can buy, Outlook, Femina, magazines at time. But then what happens is you can use a lot of pictures from them. So perhaps if you have a collection of magazines, bring it down, newspapers, allow them to choose anything and say, as long as it's something related to water, I'll accept it. But it's a development of the imaginative power and creativity. Hope you enjoy this entire thing on hygiene. It helps us become more hygienic in our lives. You can create a small chart which says what are some common hygiene things that you'll follow. It's like cleaning your nails, taking bath, combing your hair, wearing proper shoes, brushing yourself twice a day. Things that are really relevant to a child. Hope they enjoy and become more hygienic and thus more immune and not fall sick that often and more punctual in school. All the best. Good luck. Hello and welcome to Candle Yellow. And today we are doing the mentor's version of the letter L. You see, career is so important, and most of our careers begin in an institution called school. So we thought, why don't we take up one of the best schools, the school every student would love to go, and this is your Hogwarts. It is also the most famous school, and I'm sure if you're a Harry Potter fan and if you're part of the Potter mania, you would know what Hogwarts. Writing down at least 10 characters from this beautiful book, the popular book by the author. I hope you know the name of the author, J.K. Rowling's. What are the characters' names? So write down all the 10 characters you can think of from the Hogwarts. I can only start with the three popular ones: Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley. Go ahead, write the teacher's name from Dumbledore, all the people, and the evil ones also, the one who should not be named. Now, what we have done is if you have finished L1, go to L2, and where you have topic about what kind of school should do. One of the most important thing a school should and could do is encourage reading. One of my favorite group of school is called Room to Read. It's also a very popular book about a person's journey on how he's found someone begging for a pencil and it started making him believe he was working in Microsoft. He left Microsoft to open a chain of schools which he named the Room to Read. The model of Room to Read is amazing. Number one, whenever he goes to any country, it could be Cambodia, it could be Nepal, it could be an African country, it could be a South American country like Ecuador or Peru, he says the government has to give the land first. So this is the onus that they need to give the land, and once the land is provided, the building has to be built by the local community. Room to Read then provides some money to build the building. It gives books, furniture, everything required in terms of teacher's salary, and they run the school for a period of 1 year. After that, the school is on its own. It's a great program. I admire the entire thing. This is a project the students get involved in. Get the project to make up entire chart or a classroom discussion and what are the things the school require. Make a list of all the resources, including a staff that a teacher need. And because we're doing yellow, I hope they have a level where how much salary should a teacher have in a community school at a small area or a small town. Go ahead, find out some sports equipment, from books, from infirmary, which is a medical room, from things that they can be encouraged, from even local canteen, to understand the numbers on a braille dot. ATM machines have it. Today, airlines have a special braille school or a blind school, different from an ordinary school. And one of the things you can find out is looking at the braille, what kind of sports do you play? Well, the blind people also play sports, cricket, and cricket has a small bell. The ball has a bell inside. India, Pakistan, Australia, England played a tournament together. India won the tournament, by the way. But how do you hit a sixer in a blind cricket? Find out, go to YouTube, find a video and see for yourself. Blind doesn't mean you can hear, so there'll be a lot of emphasis on audio, but perhaps very little emphasis on a video. You don't need a video, but a lot of content which is a sound based thing. Arts and craft, braille students, blind students have amazing sense of design, creativity, origami, painting. They can do that as well. Despite not able to see, they are fantastic. Fine about it. How would the classroom be? If you can go online, see it, if you can ideally visit a classroom, nothing like it. And then the teachers who can be sighted. But do you think a blind student can be better off with a... In the final chapter of Candle Yellow, the M, where we always believe in asking students to do something in the community. So here is an action-oriented program called Reading to Elderly. First of all, ask them who are the elderly in their home, probably the grandparents or in and around. And if they are not together, they're living in nuclear family, speak about the values that we have inculcated, we have learned from our elders, and ask them to, find out who their lineage, who their ancestors are. Once they have identified someone they can speak to, either on a phone call, probably Zoom in today's time, or in person at home, ask them, what do elderly do? Are they more prone to behave and be like children? Is it true? When Shakespeare said a child is the father of a man, what do you think of Shakespeare, and what do you think was he when he was old? It's a very interesting conversation, and I always believe the Candle books are all about engaging conversations and opening up their perspectives and paradigms to new ideas. Our project here is Reading to Elderly. So what we'll do is, once they've identified who the elderly are, what their needs are, they will compare. So let's put a hypothetical kid here. What does he like to read? And then his grandfather or grandmother, what do they like to read? Probably the kid likes to read Geronimo or Diary of a Wimpy Kid, or a little elder, they might read Harry Potter, Percy Jackson. And what about the grandfathers and grandmothers? What about their reading choices when they were young? There was no Geronimo and Harry Potter. Imagine a world where Harry Potter didn't exist. Strange, right? But it was true. Then also look at what are the patterns between a kid and a grandfather. How much do a kid sleep and a grandparent sleep? Probably same. The food, the diet intake. What about the dress code? There you will differ. The hobbies. Probably grandparents also are now very much into mobile phones, watching a different kind of genre and serials, but probably they also have same WhatsApp and videos that come in. What about the younger ones? Maybe it's more Netflix and Amazon Prime for them. Or maybe it's gardening as a hobby. How do we cultivate a hobby as maybe reading, cleaning, something in society? How much do they talk? How about the memory retention? Trust me, one of the research that we really love to speak about, and let a child know that you have a lot of gray matter in your brain as a young child. The more you use your brain, the more gray matter is. And this gray matter is related to memory, intelligence, and which reduces over age. How about exercise between the two? So we have just concluded a exercise on M2, and very simply we are just asking a child to rethink and reflect on these. As they're interviewing, we also ask them what are the new hobbies that we have been developed. Perhaps find a proper hobby from the numerous hobby that has been given in M3 which is appropriate for an elderly statement. Oh, it's fun. Sunbathing at a beach may not be in our culture in the Indian subcontinent, but it's a very popular culture if you go to Mexico or Spain where the elderly take vacation. Traveling the world is the same thing. People are fulfilling the dreams they did not do earlier. Have you seen old couples visit, Istanbul, Sydney, and you've seen them, they go around the world. Reading, joining politics. Oh, why are old people more into politics? Does our country need younger people? It's all about cultivating these ideas as we are talking about. And one very important thing will be, how about working part-time? Or perhaps a board game. Playing chess, a great hobby, and if you can actually encourage a child to play a game of a chess or even a Ludo, today there are online Ludo games with an elderly, it would really be very interesting in terms of what kind of conversation they have. Finally, as a community project, we are asking them to do two things. How about finding out what kind of books that the elderly likes to read? Probably make a list of 5 books under these category, 5 fiction, 5 historical books, and 5 books on self-help. It could be anything from Robin Sharma to Tony Robbins or someone locally available in a local language. Maybe develop it further into 5 biographies. And trust me, they will have so many new people that you and I cannot relate to from their own time. Books on education or just a conversation on education, how and why the education system has improved, evolved, and this is what we're talking in M6. And finally, the parenting style. Probably not so much about the books, but how has the parenting style evolved in these times? How were their parents, they were strict, more disciplinary, more authoritarian, and how are today's parents more relaxed, more permissive, more lenient towards the conversations or the child growing up. Also, this is, I would like the children to have a picture of the grandparent or whoever they're interviewing, paste it, share it online, write down the name, the age, and these would become a great journal and a reflection. And meanwhile, they have not realized they have spent enough time with the people who love people spending time with them, our elderly. So let's develop this empathy and respect in the last theme of A Candle Yellow.